Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to go over lesson 3 of the book From Alpha to Omega. Now, as I mentioned in my previous video, I am trying to refresh what I learned in school of classical Greek. So I'm going through my old textbooks and making summary videos of each lesson. So today I'm going over lesson 3. Lesson 1 covered the Greek alphabet, which I didn't have to review. And lesson 2 covered accentuation rules, which I'm going to skip for the moment since I intend to focus on using modern Greek pronunciation. So lesson 3 presented the first section out of many to come in verb conjugations. A conjugation is basically a change in verb that gives it additional information regarding its context in a message. In classical Greek, verbs are conjugated to indicate person, number, voice, mood, and tense. In order to conjugate a verb, a suffix, and in some cases a prefix, is added to the root of the verb, and the verbs can have up to 6 different stems in ancient Greek. In this lesson, 3 types of verbs were covered: present active indicative, present active imperative, and present active infinitive. Here's a quick explanation of what these terms mean. So present refers to the tense of the verb. The tense is a combination of time, so when an event occurs in relation to when it is mentioned, and the aspect, which is how the speaker perceives the event. In the case of the present tense, it means that the action is occurring when the speaker mentions it, and it can either be a continuing action or a one-time event. 2 examples are the boy eats the apple, which is an event that is occurring in the present, or the boy eats apples, which is a continuous event that is also occurring in the present. Now, active refers to the voice. In the case of an active voice, the subject performs the action. In the previous example, both sentences are active because the subject is performing the action. Indicative refers to the mood. A verb in indicative mood means that the speaker is presenting a real action that can occur, is occurring, or has occurred, as opposed to contemplating a possibility. In the previous example, the sentences are indicating a real action, which is the boy eating the apple. Imperative is another type of mood. In the imperative form, the speaker is giving an order, command, or a request. For example, if you say, "Come here," that is an imperative sentence. The infinitive is a special form of a word that refers to an action as if it were a noun. This means that the verb is not describing the occurrence of an action, but it is describing the action itself. The infinitive can function both as a subject or as a complement to a verb. For example, to speak is a better solution. Here, to speak is the subject of the sentence. Or, I don't want to speak tomorrow. Here, to speak is a complement to the verb want. Now that these verb forms have been introduced, we're going to go through their basic verb conjugations. These 3 forms, present active indicative, present active imperative, and present active infinitive, will be conjugated according to person, so first, second, and third, and number, singular or plural. Now, in ancient Greek, there was a third type of number, which was a dual form, but this lesson does not cover it, so I'm also going to skip it. To present the different conjugations, we're going to use the verb pedefo, which I'm probably not pronouncing correctly. But anyway, it means to teach, and it is written in the video. The stem of this verb is composed of the first 6 letters, so P, alpha, iota, delta, epsilon, ypsilon. And to conjugate the verb, different suffixes will be added to the stem. We're going to start with present active indicative. In singular, the first person would be pedefo, which means I teach and I am teaching. The second person would be pe def is, which would mean you teach or you are teaching. And the third person would be pe def I, which means he, she, or it teaches, or he, she, or it is teaching. For the plural, the first person would be pe def omen, which means we teach or we are teaching. For the second person, pe def ete, which means you teach or you are teaching when speaking to a plural, to a group of people instead of a singular person. And the third person would be pe def usi or pe def usin, which means they teach or they are teaching. Now, for the present active imperative form, the singular second person is pe def e, which means teach, as a command being said to a single listener. And the third person imperative would be pe def eto, which doesn't have a translation in English. For the plural form, the second person would be pe def ete, which means teach if you're saying it to a group of listeners. And the third person would be pe def onton, which again doesn't have a translation. Now, for the third person imperative, like I said, there's no appropriate English translation. In English, we only give orders directly to the listener. That's how our imperative form works. But think of it as if you're speaking to someone and at the same time ordering someone else who's not part of the conversation to do something. I guess it's easier to grasp if you speak another language that has a third person imperative form, but some teachers find ways to give an approximate translation. So in the case of the verb teach, they can say let him teach or may he teach. But both translations are not that accurate because in English, let him teach works as a command to the listener if he or she is impeding the third person to teach. And may he teach works as a wishful desire instead of a command. Now for the infinitive form, this one's easy because it has no number or person, and it's pe def in, which would mean to teach. So those are the three verb forms that are taught in lesson 3 of Anne Groton's book From Alpha to Omega. The lesson also teaches some basic vocabulary words, but I'm not going to go through them since I want to focus more on the grammar part. All right, thanks for listening. If you want to check out the book, I'm going to post a link to the Amazon page on the video description. And I'll see you next time when we cover lesson 4.